I'm tapping go live.
Uh-oh.
Yes. So in just about 17 seconds, people are going to see me say in just about 17 seconds, we're live. All right, gang. I don't know that Eric is going to join us. If I see him pop up in Zoom, I will certainly bring him on. But right at the moment, I believe it's just going to be the three of us. If you are connected with Zoom, you should see the eCam scene. I have it pinned in, or not pinned, what do they call it? Spotlighted. I have it spotlighted in Zoom so that that's what you will see. Of course, you can switch to the gallery view if you want to, but this should be fine. Um, all right, so we each have a little bit different approach to the topic of, or to this episode's topic. So I think what I'm going to do is I'll have a little intro, and we will. Um, I'm going to do one final Max Stock promo, one Max Stock push before we break for Max Stock Week, and mention the break because we're going to have a break from recording until the second half of July after Max Stock is over. So I'll mention that, and then we'll bounce to the topic. And I think what I'm going to do as far as the topic is concerned is because we're each coming at it from a different angle, I think I'm going to bounce between you. So I have a little intro for you, Darren. We'll start with you since you brought the topic to the table. We'll start with you. I have a little intro. I'll pass
All
it
my
on to
fault.
you. What's that?
It's all my fault.
It is your fault. Of course it is. If Eric's not here, then you get the blame. And
Indeed.
and if he is here, then he gets the blame. You guys have seen this scene, haven't you? Here, I'm going to switch over to this scene just for a second.
It's Eric's fault.
Yeah.
Yes,
See,
absolutely.
there you go. There you go. So that is yeah. So if he's here, he gets the blame. Hey, Eric, how you doing?
Excellent.
I don't know if he's watching this live or
Oh,
not. Um, so anyway, I have a little intro to you, Darren, and then we'll let you kind of run with your angle on the topic. And then I've got a little intro. We'll bounce over to you, Brian. I've got a little
Mhm.
intro for you, just a few sentence intro, and then we'll throw it over to you to kind of share your viewpoint on the topic. And then from that point, I don't really have any serious notes other than your various talking points. So if I notice that we didn't hit a particular talking point, I'll probably try to pull that in at some point. But otherwise, um, yeah,
yeah, get
well,
us back on track.
yeah, we'll intro you, Darren. We'll let you talk about your angle. We'll intro you, Brian. We'll let you talk about your angle, and then we'll just go from there and see what happens. Um, so that's that. That's the main focus of the show. Now, Brian, you may or may not remember that we do something called an essential app at the end of every
Mhm.
episode. And I have something to talk about this episode, but if you were looking forward to presenting an essential app this episode, I will certainly let you do it. Um, you let me know, what your thoughts are on that.
So I've got one kind of. It's funny because until the WWDC event, I was like, oh, I've got one, like ready to go. And it's like I've been having some fun with it. But I think Apple might Sherlock it a little bit. So I don't know
Ooh.
how valuable it's going to be. Um, it,
Clipboard manager?
it's in the realm of reminders, actually.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, so I don't.
Well, it's up to you. If you'd like to present it, I'll throw it over to you for the essential app. Otherwise, I've got something that's actually not an app. Well,
Okay.
it's yeah. So it's going to be a little bit of a twist on the essential app segment. So you tell me, do you want to cover yours or?
I don't mind. Is yours pretty evergreen or like,
Oh yeah, yeah.
okay.
I could even present it in July.
Okay. Yeah, I don't mind sharing. I've had some good use with it. So,
All
and
right.
I think even with it being a little Sherlocked, I think it has some components that'll be still helpful.
You know, from everything I'm hearing about Tahoe's clipboard manager, clipboard third-party clipboard makers don't have to worry. I mean, they're
No.
fine.
Yeah.
At least with Tahoe. Now, when it comes
Yeah.
to the next release, then they might have to start getting a little nervous. But in terms of this upcoming initial clipboard manager, sounds like they're fine.
Yeah. Even
Yeah,
passwords is getting updated a little bit.
a little bit. Yeah, same thing.
Yeah.
Same thing.
Yeah.
Third-party password makers, they're okay for now.
Yeah.
They're okay for now. All right. Well, what do you think? Should we get started? Should we do this thing?
Sounds
Let's
good.
do this thing.
Let's do this thing. Okay. So I am getting my notes in place here. And we'll get started. All right. In 3, 2, 1. It's for Mac Guys Only, episode number 453 for June 28th, 2025. Remotely yours. Hey everyone, welcome back to For Mac Guys Only, the show for the Mac community, where we share our thoughts and opinions on current Mac news and events. And joining me to discuss all things remote access is Darren Davis. Hey Darren, how you doing?
Hi there.
And we would like to welcome our special guest, MacStock presenter, Brian Flanigan-Arthurs. Hi Brian, thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me. Glad to be here.
Awesome. And remember, if you are joining us live, I'm going to be keeping an eye on the chat room too. So if you have any questions or comments, be sure to drop them in that chat room and we will try to address them here on the show. Well, this time out, we are talking remote support, but not just opportunities to peek inside the inner workings of another computer by way of someone's desktop or file system, though that is certainly part of it. Instead, what we're looking to address, or instead, I should say, let me try that again. Instead, we're looking to address the topic from a number of different angles, including tools that you might not suspect would fall under the umbrella of remote support. Now, this is actually a topic that was brought to me by Darren, who does his own fair share of remote support work with his clients, as do I. But as an educator, Brian also brings a unique twist to the topic, and we're going to get to that in just a moment. So, what I thought we could do today is kind of bounce back and forth between the two of you, and of course, I'll chime in along the way as well. But before we get to the topic at hand, let's talk MacStock, because as we record this, we are 2 weeks away, 2 weeks away from what I like to think is absolutely one of the best weekends of the year if you are into Macs, if you're into iPhones, iPads, basically all things Apple. In fact, as we record this, we're 2 weeks away from MacStock's second day. Yep, that's right. MacStock is 3 days of awesome talks, super useful workshops, and a chance to hang out with some of the nicest Apple fanatics on the planet, while you are taking in some amazing talks from the likes of Jeff Gamet, Brett Terpstra, Doc Rock, Kelly Gumont, Mike Schmitz, Dave Ginsburg, Katie Fox, Mr. Brian Flanigan-Arthurs, and so many, many more, all of whom you can check out on the MacStock website. And while you are there, be sure to check out this year's schedule for some fantastic workshops and sessions covering anything and everything Apple, like getting the most from photos, Apple's new AI features, better productivity through automation and shortcuts, and even security-focused talks like staying safe online and using those new passkeys we've all been hearing about. Whether you are a longtime Mac geek or you are just firing up your first Mac, you're going to walk away with new ideas, new skills, and quite a few new friends too. And guess what? It's not too late. You can still grab your 3-day pass now at mac.conference.com, and you can come hang out with us July 11th, 12th, and 13th because it is going to be an awesome weekend. And by the way, both Brian and I have got a little extra special incentive for you. You can use the code MacStock50OFF, or you can use Brian's code. Do you want to share your code, Brian?
Sure. My code is Brian8944, BRIAN.
BRIAN 8944. And using either of those codes, you are going to save $50 off the price of your weekend pass. So don't miss out on the best weekend of the summer and come join us at Macstock. Oh, and one more thing, Macstock related, for Mac Guys Only will not be streaming live from Macstock. I know, boo, right? Instead, because Macstock falls on a weekend during which we would normally record, we're going to be on a Macstock break until our next episode, which is number 454, which we are going to be recording live on our YouTube channel at youtube.com/FMEOTV on July 26th. And of course, you'll be able to listen to it later once the audio version is released on your favorite podcatching feed. Yeah, that works. Okay, so on to remote support, gentlemen. Oh, you know what? Before we do that, hey, Brian, do you want to tell people a little bit about your talk at Macstock?
Yeah, I would love to. Thank you.
Yeah.
So mine is called Automate, but Don't Take Shortcuts. And the big focus of it is thinking about aspects of your life that you can automate. We all have limited amounts of time, whether, for amount of time that we are at work and want to be productive, whether making sure that the time that we're spent at home is spent with good quality time. Those types of things that we can do in our lives to automate in order to make ourselves better in that regard. But in the aspect of not taking shortcuts, and the Apple pun that's connected with it is the idea that we never want to stop learning, and the importance of learning and taking what we learn can be applied to so many other new things in that we may not even consider and realize at the moment.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, thanks, Brian.
Sure.
Again, another awesome talk, Macstock weekend. If you are not already signed up for it, come join us. Mac.conference.com. Use our code MacStock50OFF or Brian8944. I got that right?
Mhm.
Brian8944, and you'll save $50 on that ticket. Okay, cool. Thanks, Brian. Okay, now on to remote support. I think what I would like to do is start with the person who brought the topic to the table, because I know, Darren, this has been churning around in your noggin for a little while now, ever since we highlighted bananas. We highlighted bananas as an essential app a number of episodes back. It is a remote support application, client and server type application. And since that time, you've actually been doing a lot of testing, and you said that you wanted to talk about this again because now you have decided on a firm direction that you plan to use for most of your remote support moving forward. So why don't we start with that? What did you settle on, and why did you settle on it?
Yes. Yes, as you say, this all springs from what we were discussing when I highlighted Banana's remote desktop. I was recommended that because it's highly thought of in the Unix community, and it's quite a nice app, although there are shortcomings to it. And I remember we said,
Yeah.
or yourself saying, I should make sure I get it all tested out with all the other options, and then we can come back on the show and talk about remote desktop stuff. So I finally actually did that, so now I can come on and say what I've discovered. Yeah, I mean it's not bad at all. It's just there are better options that I've found. And one of the main ones was because a fair few of my customers are Mac users, and one of the things that does confuse, I mean, especially people that are requesting help remotely, they aren't necessarily going to know how to dive into settings and navigate to permissions and say, grant screen recording access to this application to make things work. And the trouble with that is, of course, you've got to do it imagining what they're seeing, because at that stage you can't see anything at all. So you have to try to describe to them what to click on without being able to see what they're seeing. So it can get rather fraught, and they can get rather confused. So in the end, I tried several options, and pretty much circled back to what I'd tried in the early days, but things are very, very good with it now, which is FaceTime. So what I've done now is to standardize on using FaceTime connections with my customers, and then through a FaceTime connection, which is also really good because it doesn't need the permission side of things, because FaceTime is an Apple product and it's already got all the permissions it needs built into the OS, so it doesn't confuse customers, which is great. So I don't have to describe, oh, go here, click on this, and then we might be able to see each other. It just works, which is really good. Specifically for Mac users. Then the other options are they see my wonderful face, so they can trust that it's really me and not some horrible scammer trying to do nefarious things to their computer. Which yeah, you've got to watch out for that. If you're wanting remote help from someone, only get remote help from someone you absolutely trust, and that, you know, that has to be a thing. And thirdly, the performance was absolutely fantastic. It's very easy then for me to promote the FaceTime call into a remote desktop session where I can help them with their problem and see and have full control over their desktop with their permission, and they give permission very easily, and highlighted the fact that the performance was amazing, because when you think about what's going on, it could be not necessarily in this country. I mean, my customers are country, but they needn't be. I could have the same performance to see someone's remote desktop in high quality. It doesn't drop the quality down to make it look awful just to get the speed. So that's another benefit. But the live video stream, two-way video stream, is going at the same time. And I just find the speed and the fluidness and everything just is a lot faster using remote desktop functions through FaceTime on a Mac than it is using any other product. So with those three things in as benefits, I'm like, okay, this is it. It's sold me now. I'm FaceTime all the time. Oh, there's a fourth benefit as well, because customers don't necessarily need to know an exact contact method, because you can register several contacts for yourself that are contactable through FaceTime. A customer can choose one of 3 or 4 or 5 different contact addresses to get request remote help, and they don't necessarily need to remember, oh, what was that? Was there a special contact address or something special to click on? They can literally choose any method to contact me, and FaceTime will just work it out, and the session can just go ahead. So it makes things a lot more straightforward for my Mac customers to help them out with FaceTime remote desktop. So that's what I've picked for that side of things.
Interesting. So you mentioned something there about FaceTime not requiring the extra permission click, but my experience is that it does. So even when you're sharing your screen, it doesn't pop up and say, "Hey, somebody wants to see your screen. Do you want to give them permission?"
Oh yes, it does. It does pop up that exact request. So, but the customer only has to say accept or deny. They don't have to dig into because normally on other packages they'll say you must now go to settings and find the permissions section for remote control and grant access and so on. So it's more straightforward. All they have to do really is say accept your remote desktop request.
And FaceTime doesn't require the screen sharing permission.
It's effectively I believe it's already on, because through testing, none of my customers have had to accept anything extra to make that happen. That may or may not change in the future.
Sure.
It is tricky, because the more that gets added to keep customers secure and people secure using not just remote desktops, but just remote video sessions, to keep them secure, to save them from themselves almost in a way, that adds extra complexity to make the whole process more difficult for them in the first place. So it swings and roundabouts. The more protections you add for a user to make things easier for them, the more difficult you make it for them as well.
Yeah.
So on the one hand, you're protecting them, and on the other, you're just making the whole process so complicated that they may not even be able to take advantage of remote desktop sessions if they're really confused. So yeah, it just seems that FaceTime's way of working, because effectively the user's already granted FaceTime the permission when they log into their account, to be able to be contactable and usable through that account. So they've already given one permission by logging in a way. It does make it very, very simple to do the remote desktop sessions and remote access sessions for helping someone with a video call.
Yeah, and I certainly do want to talk about your solution for remoting into Windows clients in just a moment.
That's the good one.
Yeah. Now, I definitely kind of chuckled a little bit when you mentioned needing to kind of blindly lead somebody through the process of what permissions to click and where to go and all that sort of stuff.
We've all been there.
I use, yeah, I think we've all been there. I use an application called SplashTop.
Oh yes, I've heard of that one too. Yeah,
it is their technician package or something. So on the client side, and the vast majority of them are Windows users, but once in a while there's a Mac user. On the client side, they use a simple program called SplashTop SOS, and it doesn't require any installation. They just double click and run it. However, as you rightly pointed out, if it is a Mac user, it does pop up a screen that says, okay, now you need to give me, SplashTop SOS, certain permissions. Now, fortunately, it steps them through it really nicely, much like many other applications do now. It's step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4. The interesting thing, however, is that I'm not completely blind when it comes to helping them. I can still connect to their Mac, and I can see that screen that says you have to give these permissions. So at least I know where they are in the process.
Just click here.
and I can say, okay, see that window where it says this? Click here.
Yeah, nice.
Click there. Now what I can't see is their system settings. So once they click that button to change the system setting, pretty much I open up system settings on my computer and say, okay, now it should look like this.
And talk them through the equivalent.
And talk them through it. But once they click that final button and give that final permission, then the whole desktop appears, which is nice. So at least I can see the splash top
Yeah.
give me these permission screen, and that actually helps a lot because then I know where they are and what they've done. Um,
There is one thing I found that is a bit tricky because I tried to do that originally. I tried to have just one product to use
hmm,
to rule them all for PC support and also Mac support.
yeah.
But yeah, it didn't quite work out. Um, the one of the problems I found with the third party side on the Mac is when if it is installed, when the application updates, or you have a new link on your remote connection website link, for instance, to an updated app, that because the app is updated, it now needs a new permission. So it'll do the permission request again, even if and the poor user on the other end says, "Oh, I remember, didn't we do this already before? And I've got to do it again." It's like, "Oh, yes, you do, because the app is updated." None of that happens with FaceTime, so it just makes things more streamlined. And I do like the performance better anyway, I think, on FaceTime as well. So I'm quite happy to have separate products for Mac support and Windows support. So I've gone down that road now.
For what it's worth, when the rare occasion the Splashtop standalone updates, it does not re-request permissions.
Oh, that's good.
I thought I'd point that out.
That's one thing I didn't try. I didn't try for the Splashtop. So
Yeah, it's quite good. There is a cost to it, and that's the case for many of these, but it's much more cost effective than, say, TeamViewer, which got quite expensive a few years ago. So
yes.
I stopped using that. Brian, do you ever use FaceTime to do support for family members or friends or anything like that when you're helping them with their stuff?
Yeah, I've used just a little bit of practice with that. Usually, I don't need to go into that much depth on a lot of the family members that I help. I'm fortunate that my folks that I do help most of the time with that type of thing, they're not that far away from me. So I drive down, they're about 20 miles away, and I see them frequently. And
Well, that's
as a
nice.
result, being able to connect with them in that way, uh, you know, literal FaceTime, and help them in that regard. But
So,
on occasions, yeah, what I've used it more to show kind of not in the remote help type area, but more just to like we do a lot of fun things with lights and like some RGB bulbs and things of that nature
oh, cool.
around either the house or outside for the holidays. And sometimes, my wife and I will utilize FaceTime to kind of show, okay, here's what we kind of rigged up here for the holidays and that type of thing. And it kind of, in a support way, kind of gives them some ideas because I've shared some lights that they've now installed in their area that kind of gives them some ideas. And then so we do bounce back a little bit in that regard. So a little bit off topic, but
That's cool.
but a different type of remote help using FaceTime.
Hey,
yeah, it all counts.
it all counts, whatever works. And in the back of my head, I keep thinking, you're doing face-to-face time.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Or what we call in IT support sneaker net. That is, you actually get up on your feet and walk over to, or in your case, drive
That's
over
it,
to
yeah.
provide the support versus the virtual support. Hey, it works.
And of course, in the States, you guys have a very big country. So when you said, "Oh, they're only 20 miles up the road," to me, that's quite shocking because our country is exceptionally small. So 20 miles is you'd fall off into the sea.
So you don't want to hear I drive like 14 miles to the office every day then, huh?
Oh, we say things like, "Oh, they're only 10 minutes up the road," so it's like it's not counted in that distance. Yeah, scary distance that is. 20 miles, my God. So no, I'd always do a remote desktop session for someone that far away.
Cool.
Yeah.
So we talked about remote support for Mac users, and FaceTime is a fantastic solution. Can you use FaceTime or something similar for helping someone with their iPhone, Darren?
Yes, this is a new feature. kind of is, it's not open to third party helping type people like myself. Apple does have their own tools. They can remotely do interesting things with interactive stuff like a remote desktop session, but for iOS devices. So that they do have special software for that, which isn't available to us mere mortals. But that doesn't that's not a problem anymore now, because the new well, my customers, at least, they have quite up-to-date systems, so they're able to use oh, what's it called, remote the iPhone remote software built into macOS now. So I can do it as a conduit. So if I do a FaceTime call with a Mac user and I want to help them with their iPhone, more often than not, they're already set up. Some of them don't even realize that they're already set up to do this. So, which is really fun. It's really, I can show them something that they're like, how on earth did you do that? So I can just run the remote app on their Mac to connect to their phone. So their phone then appears on my remote desktop session to their Mac, and I can help them through the phone and even control the phone through the Mac. So sort of like a two-level conduit through to help them with their phone. Unfortunately, you can't do that on the iPad yet, but I think that will come at some point, because it's only a small change to allow them to allow the remote app to support iPad as well. So for the moment, it's just for the phone, but it does work really surprisingly well. So you've got this 3-window session going on. So I can see a very nice fluid video chat session with myself, then a remote desktop session, and on that remote desktop session is another remote desktop session to their phone. So it kind of works. It sounds a bit mad, but it kind of works.
It does sound a bit crazy, but I have done the exact same thing and it works. I was under the impression that there was a way to gain access to someone's iPhone home screens by way of FaceTime in the past, but honestly, I don't have a lot of cause to do that, so I never really tried it, but I thought there was something like that. But you're absolutely right. Being able to see the phone screen on the Mac and you're remoted into the Mac, well, you're really providing dual support at that point. Not only are you providing support for the Mac, but you can also support their phone at the same time. And yeah, I've done that too.
Exactly. Yeah.
I've done that too.
They think I'm very clever when I set that up going, but it's like, it's very easy. But I don't dispel the myth. I just say, okay, yeah, I'm clever.
You're absolutely the cleverest. I do want to talk about the Windows remote support aspect of this conversation, but let's bounce over to Brian, because as an educator, you've actually faced some pretty difficult challenges when COVID came onto the scene and threw all of our lives into a tizzy. And while we're not necessarily talking remote IT support in your case, I suppose we are sometimes, but you're still providing support of a different kind to your students. You're supporting their education, really. And I was a little curious what lessons you've learned in terms of providing remote support to your students. And I guess now that we're 5 years on, how many of those tools that you've implemented are still in use today?
Sure. So it started out, when we first started working remote due to COVID and students started learning remote due to COVID, we didn't have the tools right away. We used an online platform that did have very minimal tools to be able to connect. It was all asynchronous communication, though. Sometimes, it'd take a while before you get a message back, and vice versa. So it was a progressive model of establishing more and more levels of support, and then even reaching out to our students and families. I'm working at a school that half of our population is 18 and older, so they are the main contact when we contact, with regards to educational needs. And then of course the parents and guardians of our minors. It started off with leveled support where we started receiving work phones because prior to that we had a like a virtual phone that was
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah.
within our desktop,
Yep.
and it didn't have it was just you dialed the phone number using the keypad on your computer, and it was all voice. There was nothing else. I mean, it dialed and rang, and you could talk back and forth like a regular phone call, and leave voicemails, that type of thing. But essentially, it was just a regular phone. And so we did get iPhone SEs as our as
Nice.
our work phones, and as a result, we gained more ability for ourselves, being able to reach out using an official form of communication to go back and forth between our families and the adult students. Obviously things like FERPA are very important to be able to establish that who you're talking to, just as Darren was talking about, that you always want to, in the remote help area, you want to make sure that you're connected with a legitimate person who's there to help and support you and not empty your bank account. So likewise in the field of education, we certainly want to make sure that we're talking and communicating with the right person. So through both voice and text and that type of thing, that's one thing that of course we have to establish. Now,
Y-
further than that, oh, I'm
Can I
sorry, go
ask a
ahead.
quick question? You used a term there a moment ago. FERPA? What was the term you
For,
used?
yeah, so
What
basically like
what is that?
it's the aspect of, you might be familiar with HIPAA, with like HIPAA
Yeah, sure.
compliance in the
Yeah.
hospital, being able to make sure that the right people receive the information, and that your medical information is not disclosed to others in the wrong way. FERPA is the same type of aspect, but with regards to educational records and ensuring that you're
Interesting.
talking to, yeah.
I'd
And I
never heard
am
that term.
forgetting, yeah, and I'm here live on the air. I'm forgetting the acronym of the actual thing, but yeah, I can look it up. But
No, 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 that's
um,
cool. I was just curious
yeah.
what that was. I didn't want to let it
Yeah, I
I
did
didn't
think it
want to
was
let it
the
fly by
Oh
without
yeah,
asking. Yeah.
yeah.
yeah, I did think it was the education equivalent to HIPAA
Yeah.
in hospitals. So we it's funnily enough, I used to work in education myself, and then I've swapped over to working in the hospital arena now. So I've sort of been in both camps.
Yep.
Yeah, and both with the such private records that
Oh
you need to make
yes.
sure that you're communicating with the right person and or persons. And in the educational field, sometimes that changes. Yeah, I mentioned that I work with adult students as well as, of course, minor students. And when the student goes from being a minor to an adult, and the who gets the records and who gets the communication and how we
Mm,
communicate, it's all very important to make sure that you're communicating with the right person in the
yeah,
right way, and
absolutely.
what you're saying as far as like, well, can you relay a message for me, that type of thing.
Now,
Can you have
I
them
didn't
call
mean
me
to
back?
interrupt your train of thought, so please go ahead.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
sure. So like I said, it was a progressive aspect of gaining more and more levels of support. So um, probably about 4 to 5 months in, when we were working in a work from home environment, our school system, and bigger than that, the government's aspects of where I work, decided to go ahead and become a Microsoft 365 uh, campus. And we do work off of, in the professional environment, I work off of Windows computers, and they use the establishment of Microsoft Teams was very important for us to be able to communicate. We were able to instantly now gain more levels of synchronous communication, being able to real time connect with our students, at least remotely, in that aspect of being able to use the chat features, being able to relay documents back and forth, um, everything from uh, helping in a tutoring aspect. So if somebody had a document that we could edit together live and be able to look at edits and changes, all of those were extremely important. And then when you had asked when we went back into the environment where we were back in the workplace and the students were back in the school system, those tools didn't go away. And so
Interesting.
we still have those same tools, and it's been extremely beneficial to us. Our students tend to work, they have their established times that they're working during the school day, but they're also, many of them will work odd hours and they'll come in, like we have a log, we can see what times they were on and getting work done and all sorts of hours, everything from 2 in the morning till, like school starts at 8:30 and saw them got up at 6 and started working on something, and the nice thing is they can reach out to us via that platform. And I mentioned too, when I do orientation, I do one of my tasks that I do at work is I provide orientation to our students, and we have continuous enrollment, so there's always new students starting every week. And one thing that I do during orientation is explain to them Microsoft Teams, because teenagers, for the most part, do not know what Microsoft Teams is at all.
That
And
really, that's interesting.
yeah, and I explain to them, at the most basic level, I say, it's like professional text messaging, from its very basic aspect. And so, we go into, different levels of different staff members will use it to, share documents back and forth and things of that nature. But yeah, being able to establish that asynchronous communication, that they can send me a message, I can see it 7 hours later and be able to respond to them, and vice versa. That aspect is pretty powerful. One thing that we've continued, actually, I provide support on many Saturdays during the school year of Saturday school support, which is an in-person program, but we're keeping remnants of what we did when we were working remote. So what we offer to the students is the fact that many of them will come in for help and support and be there when we offer Saturday school, but there's also ones that we see that will pop online, and we see that they're online, but they're not present in the building. And so being able to notice that status indicator, I'll usually send a message and say, hey, I see you're online and I'll be online for the next 3 hours. If you need support right away, please reach out. And going back to the technical side of things, there's been aspects where a student might have a technical difficulty accessing something, and it may not be necessarily tutoring support, but rather on the other side they'll say, I tried to access this, it's not letting me get in. And while the platform that they're logged into for their curriculum, that aspect isn't working, but Teams is working, and they're able
Mm.
to start a quick meeting. I can see, they can share their screen. I can see what's going on, and then being able to determine whether or not I can remedy it is something that's in my power, and then being able to use the tools that I have to be able to determine, is it a problem with the platform for the curriculum, or is it maybe some sort of a problem with the connection, where sometimes a student might they use a lot of single sign-on aspects that sometimes will tie them up, and not being able to get them in. And beyond my scope and knowledge, it ends up being an IT help desk request that will be solved on Monday. But yeah.
That's yeah. That is. I mean, you are really, Darren and I provide more one-on-one support. Correct me if I'm wrong, Darren. I mean, that's
Mhm.
more what I do. It's a lot of one-on-one support with small business clients or individuals. It's not a situation where we have, 100 or 200 people that all need to be online in any one place, and we need to monitor them and see where they're at. But you have aspects of everything that we do at your fingertips, being able to see their desktop, being able to communicate with them directly, being able to see when they're online, where they're located, being able to send them messages. That's fantastic. And I suppose the school probably settled on Teams because of its cross-platform functionality, because of the number of different devices that can use it. And I believe there's even a web-based version of it for, if a student happens to be on a device that's not compatible with Teams, they could use the web version. I don't know how much or how little of its functionality is carried through to the web edition, but at least they can use it. So it seems like that's probably a great platform to settle on. Although I am a little disturbed that you're using Windows at the workplace.
Mhm. Yeah, me too.
Oh, tell me about it. Yeah, funny enough for me, not only I'm Windows-based at work, so I do have to find a lot of cross-platform type tools to help. And we're also Teams-based as well, funny enough, because we've signed up to O365, so we're in the fold there. Yeah, so well, I think one of the main reasons it is actually getting quite good. It's not too bad actually. What you can do in Teams, and its bloatedness is being improved, and the speed is being improved. So, and as you said, Mike, the web version of Teams works surprisingly well. I've used the web version of Teams on my Mac, and that works very nicely, although I haven't ever tried any remote desktop stuff from that, but we have special tools with our setup, which means we don't use Teams as such for remote desktop side of things. So it's only a professional chat, as you call it, which I think is a really good term. I like that term. I might steal that and use that. It's fantastic. Yeah, so unfortunately, I use Windows machines all the time, and I'm Windows based at work. Scary. And one of the reasons for that is because I'm the guy that actually puts the Windows builds together, believe it or not. So all the systems that get built, and now we're on 11,000 machines, would you believe? They're all using my builds. So when a system comes in and gets rebuilt from scratch, they're using my build setup and scripts and so on to build the machines up. So it's almost like my own OS is out there on 11,000 machines.
Been there. You know, you got that core image that gets deployed to all the machines as they're being rolled out, or if they need to be reset. Yeah, that works really well. So at work, Darren, you use a Windows computer, or are you able to use your Mac?
I do.
So
I mainly have to use the Windows side of things, but I can dip into some aspects on the Mac if I do some of part of it on Mac. I can switch back and forth, but as you say, it's mainly using the web aspects of what's available rather than specific tools. Although there is a Mac native version of Teams, for instance, and it's very nice. It's actually nicer to use than the Windows version, strangely enough. But I found quite a few issues with it. It's very cache heavy, so it will drop lots and lots of files into cache folders, and it'll create an entire mess on your Mac's storage. So I fell out of love with the Mac version of Teams. So I uninstalled that and I just use the web version now.
you just answered the question I was going to ask you, and that is why not run the native Microsoft Teams client on the Mac? I don't use Teams that frequently. In fact, up until recently, I didn't even use Zoom that frequently. But the few times I have used Teams, it works fine. I've installed the Mac client. I tried the web client, and it did what I needed it to do, but it seemed like as you kind of hinted at, the desktop client for the Mac just worked really well. I didn't
it
notice
does work well, yeah.
a big use of my storage, but then again, it was just for these brief little meetings. So perhaps with heavier use, it becomes more.
Yeah, you may not notice. I'm just a bit pedantic with the old file usage, and I noticed where all these cache files coming from, and then I delved in. I thought, oh, it's Teams' fault. It's flittering files all over the file system in folders. And it's like it finds any excuse to save a cache file.
They should be in folders related to the app, though, shouldn't they?
Oh yes, they are. Yes, they are. Yeah. Indeed. So they're not spread all over the place. So they are in a specific Teams caching location. But I just found it a bit excessive.
Well, it is Microsoft.
Well, indeed. Yes, indeed.
So that's really interesting, Brian. So it sounds like pretty much your core interaction with students is through Teams. these days.
Mhm.
Do you use any other apps to interact with them remotely, or is that pretty much it? Like how about in teaching situations? Do you use anything different there? Do you do any remote teaching?
In my role, I do not. We do have some staff members who will also utilize the curriculum platform that has some aspects related to communication. It's more of the maybe the final grade or as opposed to the kind of a progress grade aspect to it. So that aspect communicates to the student, what where they're at as far as a final decision on various assignments or tests, that type of thing. But yeah, pretty much teams from if you're thinking of like the remote aspects of it. Our
Interesting.
school is an in-person school though, and we've been back for a few years now. So the teachings does go on in person and just face to face
Hmm.
in that regard. But one thing that we've picked up on as a staff is we use Teams for a lot of our meetings. And while it was essential during work from home requirements, as we've gone back into the workplace and everybody is back, it has helped us to facilitate different aspects that when life happens and you have to leave for maybe a medical appointment and then you might be missing a staff meeting or something of nature, there's benefits to be able to get some remote connection to not miss out on everything. So, in other words, maybe the commute time of leaving work to get to your appointment, you can have the meeting on your mobile phone running on in the background and be able to not miss 100% of the information. Um, Even within our meetings itself in the workplace, many of us will meet via Teams and be able to, when we're relaying information on student data, pulling up a shared screen, being able to comment on each other's data that they're inputting, and using everyone can use their own filtering tools, which is awesome because you're able to all look at the same spreadsheet together, but everyone's
Mm.
view of it is going to be different based on the information that they need and pull from.
Oh, interesting.
So, different aspects related to that I think, are really powerful. Being able to, it almost enhances the meeting, where you're feeling more connected and you're feeling more value to that because it's the information in front of you that you need as opposed to what might be somewhat beneficial to see all that data that doesn't apply.
It's funny because I was thinking exactly that as you were describing this, that the by using Teams to host your meetings, I suppose you could even do it in person if you really wanted to maintain that collaboration, but still also see people face to face. But by doing this, you're creating a certain sense of engagement that really doesn't happen when you're just sitting around a table, everyone with a yellow pad taking notes or looking at your own printed copy or your copy of a spreadsheet on the screen. You get into these little zones in your head and you stop paying attention to what's going on. But when you're in a meeting
Yeah.
like this and you're actively sharing information, it just brings everything up to another level that you didn't have before. So I can absolutely appreciate why the team at your school has maintained this aspect of meeting that probably or possibly may not have come about if not for COVID.
That's a good point. And then, as well as our colleagues that may not work on our site, but are still within our school system, they might work in the district office and being able to connect to our meetings where logistically, the travel time between the buildings,
Mm-hmm.
would pull away and not make somebody as effective as well. So being able to pull people in that
Yeah,
otherwise couldn't join.
absolutely. Oh, that's
Yeah.
great. Um, Darren, what about remotely supporting Windows users? Now, there is a way to do it via FaceTime, isn't there? Or is FaceTime's that
No.
link you can send via FaceTime, is that really only for video and audio, or can you also do?
Yeah, that's it. exactly. Yeah, it's effectively a video link. But so you
Okay.
can do. It appears when a Windows user clicks on a link. If you
Right.
share a link, I don't tend to share the links. My customers will just contact me, and I'll get a notification. Um, so I do it differently. I don't send links out as such. But if I did send a link out to a Windows user and they clicked on that, then they would get a video call experience through their web browser, and Edge would work quite well with that. But I believe, and I haven't delved very deeply into it because I have another solution. I haven't tried to do remote desktop sharing through that, and I don't think that facility is possible, because then effectively the web browser would have to take over control of the Windows machine itself. And yeah, that I'm not sure about whether that's possible. It might be possible, but I've not delved into that because I have a nicer solution that I use. So I've tried various. Oh,
Yeah.
sorry, carry on.
Oh, I was going to say I've not dived into it either because I have a different solution. I do know that Chrome has a remote desktop
Yes,
functionality,
Chrome
which
remote desktop. Yeah,
I
yeah.
imagine Edge can also take advantage of, being Chromium based, but I'm not sure. And even if it could, I'm not sure that Apple would want to take advantage of that in in their FaceTime link. But continue. Yeah, you did find a
Yes,
solution.
indeed. But as you said, yeah, there is a Chrome remote desktop option, which I have tried as well. But that's that's very webby, if you know what I mean. It's
I
it's
do.
like definitely not a native experience. It kind of works, but it's no, not really.
It works but
So
doesn't
yeah,
work. Yes.
it works, and especially if you are supporting someone who only has access to a Chromebook or something like that, then you can. That is an option that I've got enabled, so I can do that. But I tend to not have very many people that ask for help from a Chromebook, even if some of them actually do need help.
Yeah.
Um, so I've tried a fair few tools on the Windows side, and I've settled on my favorite. I was using AnyDesk at one point, which is pretty good. I really liked that, but there is a new king on the block that's surpassed it now, for me at least, anyway. So I've just discovered the fun of using RustDesk. So that is a newish remote desktop client and chat system, which is very nice actually. It's I'm not entirely sure if it's open source or fully open source, but
It it is open
it is
source.
multi-desktop.
Yeah. And we
Oh
love
yes,
open source here on
excellent.
the
Yes.
show. Yeah.
Oh, good. Yes. So it has very good. It comes highly recommended, and it's very good on the security side of things, which is excellent. So you can inspect the code if you are so inclined. But RustDesk is very nice because one of the other a few benefits is that it's quite a small client. So if a Windows user needs help, they don't need to download a huge thing that needs installing. Again, it will just run in user space, so it'll just be able to be run without installation, which is nice. It's still secure because you only really need to often see the desktop from a user with user permissions. You don't need to often go too deeply into admin permissions, and then the user themselves can promote you to admin if you need to go that far to help them in a bit more deep way, deep and meaningful way. So it's good from a security point of view. And the app itself is quite small. It's about 22 megs. So that's pretty good. Some of the other solutions are really quite big. So it's easy to install. So it's easy to download. It's easy to run. When you request a remote desktop session, it puts up one simple yes/no box on the screen for the Windows user, so they can just say yes or no, accept the connection or not. So that makes it very easy from my side, where I can remote control their machine from my Mac and get a very, very nice speedy experience as well. So I get quite a nice fast desktop experience, so I can see a good quality picture of their desktop without using up huge amounts of bandwidth, and everything runs quite smoothly. So Rust Desk is my choice for helping Windows users.
That's super interesting, and I pulled it up. I had heard of it. I knew it was open source, but I didn't know a whole heck of a lot about Rust Desk. You said something that perked my ears up, though, and that is a no installation client. That is super important to me. Did I hear you correctly
Yes.
on that? They can just simply run the client and you can access. And
That's
then,
right. Yeah, it's a portable executable. So it's just a .exe for the Windows user, but when they double click it, it just runs directly. It doesn't need installation. It doesn't prompt for anything. And it gives you quite a nice simple window on screen, which is nice for the Windows user side of things, because often some of these apps can be like full of ads and horrible things going on. But this is a lot more straightforward because again, it's open source. It's not trying to sell you anything as such.
right.
So you get a nice cleaner interface from the user's point of view. So they'll effectively just see one little window saying, here's an optional thing to install this client if you want to, but you don't have to. So users, and it's quite nicely worded. On other remote desktop clients I've seen that have a similar window, they'll try to persuade the user to install it, and they use more persuasive language, and it's like, well, no, it's not necessary. But this one doesn't try to persuade the user to do something they don't need to do, and it gives them a much more simple window with just a connection number, and that's it. So they can tell you the connection number for the desktop, you type that in and you connect to them, and then they'll receive a very simple pop-up. Do you want to allow connection, yes or no? And that's as complex as it gets. So it's a lot simpler from their end to be able to initiate a remote desktop session when they want to, and they're fully in control of it as well. So as soon as they close the session, the session closes, and also if they log out, the session automatically closes as well. So it's quite nice how it's all managed from their end. So it makes their lives easier, and it means I can do a remote session much more simply for Windows users, and they get much less confused with no ads, especially. That's a really good selling point for this software. Rust Desk, yes, it's really, really nice.
Well, it's interesting that you mentioned the ads because, and perhaps it's because I use apps that require a license, which Rust does offer that as well. In other words, they have a host your own, a self-hosted version of their product, but then they also have an individual pro plan that looks like it's about $10 a month. And that allows you to have 20 managed devices, in other words, devices you regularly connect to. And then I imagine, and I don't see this, but I imagine it has a certain number or perhaps an unlimited number of unmanaged devices, devices that just run the client and you can connect to them.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So the sort of connections I generally do are unmanaged. They're ad hoc. They're whenever someone feels like they need a bit of a hand. So it's very much not a prescribed list of customers with their desktops saved and so on. It's all like entirely, as you say, unmanaged. But that aspect that you mentioned earlier on can be really useful but you have to be very clever, and I'm sure I know you can do it, Mike, because you're a very clever chap. Is to set up your own remote desktop jump service and server yourself and host it all yourself, so that because it's open source, you can grab this all down and install that locally yourself, so you're hosting your own remote desktop sessions. So not many others, well, I don't think there's hardly any others that allow you to do that, and that does give you better speed, more flexibility, a bit more control. But you have to know what you're doing to set it up. So it's a little bit tricky to set up, but it is a good option there if you ever wanted to go down that route and control your own remote desktop empire.
Well, and as someone, and I think you've done this too, Darren, as someone who has literally run my own servers for a business I worked for, it's really not for the faint of heart. I mean, don't jump into thinking, well, I can just use the self-hosted plan, and once I do a little setup, I'm done. You still have the maintenance, you still have the upgrades, you still have to stay on top of software patches.
Yeah.
It can, in some instances, especially if you're running a mail server, web server, DNS servers, a Rust desk server, it can become a lot of work. So before you
Yeah,
jump into
absolutely.
that, pay close attention to that $9.90 a month, because it is more than likely worth it to you to pay that over setting up
Yes,
your own
yes.
server. I no longer do that at all. It has become much more effective for me, cost effective for me, to let others do what they specialize in. And
Yeah.
I'm just that middle person, and I like that arrangement much better these days.
I do as well. It's much less work, and the less work, the better. Yeah, I think it's good to pass that on to for the guys to run a managed service, and you just pay a fee, and that's pretty good.
Yeah.
As you say, you don't need to pay a fee if you're doing ad hoc stuff, but if you're doing this like on a grand scale, say you're supporting a known user list from say a larger company or something like that, then this is when you would invest in this sort of thing, and it's well worth it. I think it's a very good piece of software, a very good service.
Oh, well, let's go back to what you just said a moment ago, Darren. So, if you only want to connect to clients or friends or family members on an ad hoc basis, you don't need to pay anything. You can just connect up and go, or
Yeah,
do you
yeah.
need to pay this $10 a month?
No, you don't have to pay anything if you just want to use
Interesting.
this in an ad hoc way. Yeah, um, one or two uh, users that you want to connect to, friends and family, that sort of thing. You can use this for that, no problem. And of course, since it's cross-platform, fully cross-platform, you can use the same thing for your Mac using friends and family, and also your Windows using friends and family.
For that matter, when you click the download link on the it's rustdesk.com. When you click the download link, you are taken not to a download page on rustdesk.com, but to GitHub, which is where you go
GitHub, yes, it
download
goes through.
the client. So that's pretty interesting. So, and the download options here include Windows, of course, Ubuntu, Mac, Android, a flat pack for various editions of Linux, a web edition, which I
Yes,
don't think is a download. I think it's just a link
it's just a link. Yeah, yeah,
to go with the web version, and an iOS edition. So
yes.
that is pretty slick. I like this a
No, not
lot.
not for remote control, but for screen sharing. Yes,
Screen sharing,
but
yes,
yeah,
you can see
on the
their
iOS
screen,
side.
but not
That's
control
right.
the
Yeah.
screen. Yeah. Now, to your point much earlier, actually, both of you raised this point, is always, always, always be very aware of who is asking for remote support of your computer. I literally had
Yes.
a client contact me last week. She said that the mouse cursor on her screen was going wonky and things were popping up when they shouldn't be popping up. And we went
Mm,
through the normal. You got to always eliminate the simple stuff, right? Um, and what do you know? Disconnecting her from the internet, the problem disappeared. Hmm.
Interesting.
Well, it
Wonder
turns
what's going on
out
there.
that she was tricked, social engineering. She was tricked
Ooh,
into downloading a free, legitimate remote access app that then ran continually in the background of her Windows computer. And
mm,
once we discovered that, got rid of it because it was a legit application. It was easy to get rid of. But once we got rid of it, the problem stopped. So always pay close attention to requests you get. Don't open executable links from emails. Don't click links to sites you don't recognize. And even if you do think you recognize it, pay very, very close attention to the actual URL you're visiting, because
absolutely.
they've gotten much trickier about obfuscating the links that they're actually sending you to. But to that point, Rust Desk has a big red warning on their website
Yes.
that assumes you're being sent to Rust Desk for nefarious purposes. It says,
Yeah.
warning, I'm going to read this verbatim, warning, you may be being scammed. If you are on the phone with someone you don't know and trust who has asked you to install Rust Desk, do not install and hang up immediately. They are likely a scammer
Perfect.
trying to
Yeah.
steal your money or other private information. Quite frankly, every single remote access software company should do this. They need to put these
Yes.
warnings on their screen that say, unless you know and trust this person, don't
That's
be
it. Yeah.
don't be downloading our software. We would rather you not
Yeah.
run Rust Desk than be scammed by
Yeah.
somebody. So I think that's, to their credit, that's a really nice thing that they do there. Um, let's see. Let's pop back over to you, Brian. Is there anything that we didn't talk about? We talked about quite a lot in terms of how you use remote support or remote access type solutions with students and faculty members and other staff at your school. Is there anything that we didn't touch on? Oops, I think you're muted.
My apologies.
Ah,
There we go. One aspect that I hit on a little bit was the work phone, and being the iPhone SE, it's not connected with the Apple account or anything of that nature, but having those apps and the availability of um, the obviously just the text messaging app, the phone app, obviously, but also the Microsoft apps on there, being able to, if you needed to quickly remotely yourself access something, it's available. We have all of our, for files and whatnot connected to the OneDrive. You can call up something that if you were away from your desk and or you didn't want to have to open the laptop and log into it and the time it takes to do that, you can quickly look at a text message or you can quickly look at a email message that may have come in or a Teams message and decide, is that something that I need to respond to now?
mm,
And if so, is it something that I can respond to relatively quickly with a shorter response that I can do on the phone and just type out my response? Or is it something that I need to go ahead, put aside, open the laptop and respond in a longer form way, or something I need to connect to more documents or that of things of that nature? I think that helps a lot. So remote, but remote for yourself, being able to just kind of see what you, what type of things are, what kind of maybe surprises that might have come up that you don't want to have to, oh yeah. So come when 8 o'clock in the morning, you log in and you see 10 emails and you wish you would have had access to them before and said, well, gosh, if I would have known these emails were coming in, I would have gotten to work an hour earlier to put out this fire. So
um,
things like that are a really good peace of mind. Yeah.
it's interesting that you mentioned they're not signed into an Apple account. As a work issued phone, I would kind of imagine that they would have a central method by which they manage and deploy those phones to you. But it sounds almost like they're just handing you a phone and saying, "Here, install these few apps, but otherwise have at it. It's yours to do with as you please." Which I appreciate that approach for sure. I've used that with a small business that I worked for many years ago. It was a trust the user, don't don't assume they're going to do wrong. Trust them first. And that was kind of the way I approached the situation at that particular entity. But being a larger school system, it's interesting that they just kind of hand you a phone and say,
Well,
"Here you go."
yeah, they are locked down. You cannot download any apps. The apps that
Oh,
are on
I see.
there. Yeah, so
Okay, I
they're managed.
misunderstood.
Yeah.
Okay, I
Yeah, they're just
misunderstood. So,
not with an Apple account. Yeah. So nothing connected with iCloud or anything of that nature.
gotcha, gotcha. Okay, I misunderstood what you
They're
were saying then.
they're all green bubbles. They're all
All
green
green
bubbles.
bubbles. Oh, that's fun. Okay. Um, I know there's one more aspect of remote access that you are passionate about, Darren, that you wanted to touch on just a little bit today. It might not have to do with IT support, but perhaps supporting your, how do I say this, your own personal gaming pleasures.
Oh yes, yes. There's a couple of aspects, but yeah, there's the gaming aspect which you can do remotely. Um, I find that really good because it's not necessarily just gaming. Because one of the things I tend to do is I've got um, a, a sort of a Windows a very small Windows computer which is just plugged into my router. So instead of trying to get my Mac to virtualize and emulate and do all the the complex stuff, which also requires a lot of RAM and a lot of storage and so on. I
Indeed.
offload all of that. I offload all of that to a remote system. So it's like even if I'm not gaming as such, um, I'm using like a distributed system. I've essentially got two computers which are melded into one. So because I use spaces and mission control, and I flip between things, so you can do some really cool remote desktop stuff from your Mac. So it feels like the two computers you're using, or sometimes three, sometimes four computers, um, are all part of the same machine. So I'm using the same keyboard and mouse and display, and the Mac is in control of the entire desktop experience. But they're actually showing the results, the live results from several computers. Sometimes several real computers, and some of them are several virtual computers. Um, but what effectively you're doing then, even if you're not playing a game or anything, which you can do, is you're distributing the load of what you want to process across all those machines. So the load then specifically on the Mac is almost nothing. So you're not using up tons of RAM, you're not using up any storage, you're not using up any resources at all. So your Mac runs at absolutely full top speed. And the other machine is also running at its top speed, but you're seeing the results of both things combined together. So I use that two different remote desktop methods. So I use RDP, which a lot of people think is a standard, but it's not a standard. It's just very popular, which is the Windows Remote Desktop Protocol, I think it stands for. So
Yeah, that's right.
RDP is treated as a standard in a way, but it's not a standard. It's just very popular. What is a standard is VNC, and the Mac does have VNC built in itself, so built into the operating system. So you can just tick a box and say, let me remote control my Mac from another machine, and that could be a PC or a Linux machine. And you can do it that way around as well. But I mainly remote desktop to other machines from my Mac using RDP, and it's the RDP app is now called the Windows app, and it's available in the Mac App Store. So it used to be called the Remote Desktop app, which is entirely great because the name meant what it actually did. But no, it's called the Windows app, and it's sort of an amalgamation of everything that includes remote desktop stuff. But it works really, really well, and it's available free in the App Store. So all you have to do really is install that on your Mac, have a tiny little, I've got a physically small desktop PC, a micro PC, plugged into my router, and then I just remote desktop onto that using either RDP to do usual things like spreading the load of some work to have that run across several actual machines. Or I can use another remote desktop, a sort of very specialist one called Parsec. And the claim to fame of Parsec is that it's exceptionally fast, and it uses hardware compression for the remote desktop. So it's very, very speedy. So it's very reactive. So you can actually use it for gaming, a proper gaming session. And it's also it was highlighted on one of Linus Tech Tips videos as well, because and it ties into what you were saying earlier, Brian, about COVID support, because when COVID hit back in the day, a whole 5 years ago now, it's scary, isn't it? So, they had a similar issue. So a lot of their video editors, well, all of them, have an exceptionally big, powerful, expensive video editing rig in the office, but they had to work from home. So what they did was they used Parsec to, because it was so fast, you can even do frame-based accurate video editing remotely. So they weren't necessarily gaming as such, unless it was a lunchtime or something. But they were working, Linus Tech Tips video editors were working from home during COVID, and they were remoting into their highly specialized, very expensive video editing rigs back in the office, but using Parsec to remote control their machines as if they were sitting there in the office. So it's that fast for being able to do reactive desktop control. So if you wanted to do something really fast, Parsec is the way to go. So that includes gaming, but it can be used for other things as well that you need to run quickly, like video editing.
That is amazing. And the thought that keeps occurring to me as you're explaining how you have this set up, and by the way, a little micro PC is not necessarily a good PC to remote into if you're interested in Windows gaming. You need a little bit more
you need something a bit more powerful.
Yeah. So just to clarify that. But as you're describing the setup of using RDP or Parsec to remote into a PC, whether it be running Windows or whether it's running Linux or what have you, is that you must have had a discussion with Apple, and you are the reason why we can no longer have nice things. The whole thing that allowed me to finally make the Mac my primary desktop, and this was way back when, was the shift to Intel, because once virtualization hit the desktop on the Mac, I no longer needed all these different PCs. But now that we've moved to Apple Silicon, the solution is once again to have multiple machines that you have to remote into in order to do stuff that you used to be able to do on the Mac. Okay, so that's just a little complaint of mine, but it'll maybe get better. I don't think it will. I think your solution is probably the best for doing that sort of thing. And, if we're being honest, virtualization and gaming was never all that great on the Mac anyway.
Well, yeah, that's changing. But you're right to highlight that. Although if you do use that method, it does mean whatever happens to any OS as it's updated, and whatever changes happen, whatever changes to the architecture happen, the solution will carry on working forever. So I used to do this a long time before, back in the Intel days, and back even before then. So the same approach and solution has worked through all of the architecture changes that we've had. So it's good in that aspect. So there are good aspects to doing it that way.
Absolutely
But
good aspects
I
to it.
mean,
And
it,
one thing,
it is possible. Oh, carry on. Yeah.
I was going to say, one thing that is a big benefit of of RDPing into a Windows or Linux running primary machine is that that machine can then, by extension, virtualize other desktops. So if you have a sufficiently powerful computer that you are RDPing into, that computer can handle the load of all those virtualizations that you rightly pointed out used to take or put a decent strain on your Mac.
That's right. Yes, that is another aspect. Like for instance, if you want to host virtual machines on a Windows box that you remote desktop onto, one of the special features that you can use with VirtualBox is that you can't use RDP to remote desktop to a Linux machine unless you install some software and configure things and do this, that, and the other, jump through a few hoops and pray to the right deity. Then you can get it to work. But one of the killer features of VirtualBox is that you can literally tick one box on your virtual machines and say enable RDP mode for this virtual machine, which can be a Linux box. It doesn't matter what OS it's running, and it needs no software installed, which is great. So that means I can use the Mac's Windows remote desktop app, the Windows app, to remote desktop directly into a Linux machine that hasn't got RDP facilities normally, but it's running from VirtualBox remotely on another system, but it's running in headless mode. So one of the things you can do in VirtualBox is you can say, run this virtual machine in headless mode. So it doesn't bother to put up a display, but it's running in the background. But because you previously enabled RDP connection to that separate Linux machine, you're effectively remoting directly from your Mac to the Linux machine, bypassing all of the Windows desktop side of things. So that's another aspect of something you could do to again spread the load. So your Mac isn't being stressed in any way using lots of RAM or storage to host these things. And it is possible to do. You can set up a Mac. It has to be fairly powerful. You have, like you say, you have to have all that RAM and you have to have lots of storage to do this. But it is possible to entirely host all of this on your Mac. But using this other method, my sort of cheating method, as it were, you can use two lower end systems. So rather than use one big, very expensive system to do all this hosting, you can use my Mac is very modest. I've got a very modest M1 Mac, and my PC is very modest. It's an extremely, it would be classed as just about bearable on the PC side of things. So because of these two machines that are effectively low end, together they turn into a high end system. But the cost of getting two low end systems to work together like that is much less than you would pay to build one insanely powerful system to try to do all of that together on one machine. So what I'm doing is also saving money.
You are saving money. And one other thing I wanted to raise, because I love the way you're doing it, and you are doing it in the way you just described, right? You're running VirtualBox for various other platforms, enabling the RDP on those individual virtual machines, and that VirtualBox is running probably on a Windows machine. I would imagine.
That's right. Yes. Yeah. That's it. Yeah.
One thing I did want to point out, however, is that you're doing all this within the confines of your own internal network. You're not RDPing into a machine that's located elsewhere or using VNC to connect to a machine elsewhere, both of which can be done securely, but by default are not necessarily secure connections.
Yes, you have to, if you want it enabled so that your remote system was truly remote and not on your own network, then you could do that. But in order to be secure, you do need to jump through a few hoops, and you do need to make sure you lock a few things down.
Right.
So there's a distinct difference. So there's what we talked about earlier on was remote desktop sessions to people that could be anywhere, and we're helping Mac users and Windows users remotely. And this second method is different for your own machines. So your own machines on your own network and how you remote onto those and use those. So that the two aspects of doing that are separate.
Exactly. Something like Splashtop, Rust Desk, FaceTime, any of the methods that we talked about for connecting to someone remotely, those are by default secure encrypted tunnels to that other machine. RDP and VNC by default are not secure encrypted tunnels. So if you're going to do something like what Darren is describing, where you're remoting into a Windows box to do Windows-y things, or you want to run a game on it that's, only Windows, or maybe you want to fire up an Ubuntu or Linux Mint session or what have you, or Pop OS, which I know is one of Darren's favorites, then you're going to be using RDP or VNC to connect to that machine, but that connection is not necessarily going to be a secure encrypted tunnel to that other machine. It is, in effect, openly transmitting the data between the two. So it's just something to be aware
of. But since it's on my local network, that's it, to be aware of that. Because the machines that I'm remoting to are my own machines on my own network, then internally it is secure. So it's not accessible from outside, or I've not turned that feature on.
Right. Don't punch a hole in your firewall. Set up a Windows machine or a Linux machine or a Mac with RDP or VNC, and just leave it open to the world, because it will get hacked. If you're going to do something like that, at least make sure that you set everything up properly. Yeah.
Exactly.
And heck, if folks want us to, we can talk about how to do that in the future.
You'd have to probably do that, because it's quite a scary thing to dive into. All those ports need opening and testing, and
it's not a
port scanning.
Scary thing. I mean, it's a VPN essentially.
You have to know a little bit about what you're doing.
Yeah, you're setting up a VPN into your home network.
Effectively, that's one method.
What you're doing, or that is one way to do it. Let's put it that way. I don't think I would ever recommend just setting up an RDP connection on some randomized port and
let's open a random port. What could happen? What could go wrong?
What's the worst that could happen when there are port scanners out there always looking for open RDP connections? Nothing can happen, right? No, don't do it. Don't do it. Use a VPN.
Don't do that. Don't do it.
Anything else that we want to talk about in terms of providing remote support, remote assistance, remote education? Anything else that comes to mind, Brian?
No, not at the moment.
Okay, we're going to get to you in just a moment. How about you, Darren? Anything else you wanted to add to the conversation before we wrap up?
No, not at all. I think we've covered a lot to ingest. Actually, there's quite a lot to unpack.
Yeah. Certainly, we could continue down any one of these paths much further, but I think just as a nice overview of providing remote support, various ways of providing that support, I think Microsoft Teams, as Brian raised that point, seems to be a fantastic solution in his situation, where you have all these different aspects of providing remote support, including the chat and desktop sharing and even voice calls. I mean, you can do that too with Teams. There's so many different aspects of it, remote meetings, collaboration, things like that. In his situation, that's the perfect tool. For others, it might be Zoom. For others, it might be a combination of Apple's tools that come native on every single Mac and iPhone that we have at our disposal. And then in Darren's case, leaning heavily on FaceTime when it comes to providing support to remote Mac users, and then taking advantage of the tools like the what do they call it, Darren? The
Oh, I
phone
forgot.
app. What
I
do they
always
call
forget
it?
the
I
name
can't
of it.
remember what they call it. Um,
Yeah, I've forgotten the name as well.
I don't have it running
Well, let me
on
look it
my
up.
Mac all the time, and I took it out of my dock, so I don't remember what they called it. Gosh darn it! I think it's just called, I don't know, the phone app or something. But you
Oh,
can
I'll
use
have to
that.
look it up.
The point is, despite our aging brains not being able to remember what it's called, the point is, if you need to be able to see someone's iPhone screen, you can use that tool to pull up that screen on their Mac that you are remotely connected into. There's all sorts of inventive, unique ways to provide support to people that we just didn't have at our disposal a few short years ago. Um, so I think we'll wrap
Yeah.
things up on providing remote support. If you provide remote support to others, or if you are the one who often reaches out for the help, what have you found that works best when communicating with others at a distance? Share your thoughts, drop me a line, or leave a comment in the show notes for this episode, and we'll talk about your comments here on the show. Well, before we wrap up the episode, every week we do something that we call our essential app. And that is where we talk about an app that has become somewhat indispensable to us. And when we have a guest on the show, we like to invite that guest to talk about an app that is essential to them. And Brian came prepared. He knew we were going to talk about this, and he said, as a matter of fact, I do have an essential app I would like to talk about, Mike. So, Brian, what is your essential app pick this week?
All right. So my essential app is called InstaRemind. And one of my favorite Apple, whether it works on the Mac or the iOS or iPad, I love using is the Reminders app. And the Reminders app has been getting more and more powerful and being able to, um, make sure that you remember things, in your daily life, as well as reoccurring things, things in the future. And I heard about this app and I checked it out, and it's cost wise, it's $2.99,
Wow.
and it's available. It's a Mac only app, and you can download it from the Mac App Store as well. And it's a one-time purchase. It's not a subscription, and which is getting to be more of a rarity these days, I think.
Mm-hmm.
But this is a way where you can, instead of calling up the Reminders app on your Mac, you can have this app live in the menu bar, or you can call it up with a keystroke. And what pops open is something that kind of looks a little bit like the spotlight search bar. And when you open that, you type in what you want to be added to a reminders. But what's powerful, and I have let me put the link. I have the link to the app and to the guide in the our internal chat. Um, it has different codes that you can use to have it be able to, as you know, in reminders, one of the powerful things you can do is set something not just for now, but something in the future. And being able to type in what you want, where you want that filtered to. And it does take a little bit of a learning curve, a little bit to remember what particular shorthand, I don't know if they say shortcuts, but it has so many meanings. Shorthand, uh, things to type in to as keystrokes. For example, you can specify if you want something. Oftentimes, you might have a reminder where I'm thinking, okay, on Wednesday, I need to do such and such, but I want to put that in the reminder now because the whole purpose is I don't want to forget. So if I start typing it in and I preset up the word Wednesday, it knows that the word Wednesday isn't part of the term of the reminder, but rather as a due date. And so those types of
Oh,
little
nice.
things are really nice. Um, I do know in the upcoming Mac OS Tahoe release, they've made some really impressive improvements with Spotlight Search.
Yeah.
Um, and there's going to be some aspects of reminders that'll be pulled into that, being able to create reminders, but I think this is a little bit more powerful, at least for now, than what will probably appear in OS Mac OS Tahoe. So I think it's still, and for the price of $3, it's really not that hard in the wallet for a one-time purchase and something. And for privacy concerns too, I was just double checking in the Mac App Store where it kind of gives you the little tab that talks about what type of information it collects and all that type of stuff, and it specifically says no data collected, and I love to see that. So that is
You,
great.
you mean it doesn't say I'm sending all of your reminders to the developers of this app?
Exactly.
Can you imagine?
Uh,
Can you imagine if it said that? And
So
more so if Apple allowed it. Oh my gosh.
yeah.
Um, this is great. I love this. I love quick, simple little apps that just sit there in the menu bar and allow you to interact with the key apps that you use on the Mac. And like you, reminders is something. I think I heard you say this. Reminders is something that I found myself using more and more in recent years. I could never really get the hang of reminders before. I would put reminders in there, and they would pop up on the notification center and say, "Oh, you got this reminder," and I'd swipe it away, and then I'd forget about it. I'd instantly forget about it.
Yeah.
But the way I've come to use reminders is I don't set alarms. I don't set for it. I don't give it a time to pop up that reminder. Instead, I simply use it as a to-do list.
Hmm.
So I keep the reminders app running all the time. All the time. It's running and I can just pop it up. And if I'm understanding correctly, this works very similar to an app that we talked about a little while ago called Reminders Menu Bar, where it sits in your menu bar and you can click on it, you can add a reminder, but InstaRemind will also show you what upcoming reminders you have as well, will it not?
I believe you still have to open up the reminders app. I don't think it will pull open current ones that you have. So I don't think it can dive into and show you that. I think you then have the option to easily, just from the menu bar option, to open reminders.
Mm.
But I don't, to my knowledge, I don't think it can know, say for instance, maybe you have a conflict if you put in a time and that type of thing, or that. But you can set what folder you want by inserting a hashtag
Oh, that's
and being
nice.
able to, so you might have something that's maybe more of like a packing list versus something that might be more of it's chores you want to make sure that you get done on a regular basis. So,
That's awesome.
and then you can always open the app later and find, like a fine-tooth comb, open up and be able to make some edits and more to your specifications, but if you want to quickly so you don't forget it. Just enter it now so you don't forget. I think this is a useful tool.
Yeah, I love it. I love the integration. I love the simplicity of it. Oh, okay. I see. I see what you're talking about right now. I just pulled up their website, which is instaremindapp.com. And I love the little date picker. Oh, this is great.
Mhm.
You're right. It looks just like Spotlight in its own simple way. And as you're
Mhm.
typing in the reminder, I love the little calendar picker that comes up because I don't always know what date it is I want to add. I want this added for. So having a calendar pop up and I can say, oh yeah, okay, it's that Friday. Even if I don't know what the date is, I can click on it and have it automatically add that. That is great.
Yeah.
Oh, this is a fantastic pick. So is this something you found pretty indispensable in your daily life?
Yeah, I think it's one of those things. I use it on a semi-regular basis, but I think not as a negative, as a positive. It's one of those things that it's always there. So anytime I need it, it's instantly I can bring it up. So anytime that you need to enter something, it'll be available there for you.
That's great. And then
Yeah.
it looks like the download, if you click that, it takes you to the Mac App Store.
To my
So,
understanding, I think it's only a Mac app.
yeah, so
Yeah.
they don't have a trial. In other words, they don't have a trial for it. When you click, if you go to Insta, oh, I already forgot the URL of it. If you go, I'm sorry. If you go to
InstaRemindApp.com. That's right.
InstaRemindApp.com and you click download, you're going to find yourself bounced over to the Mac App Store. But that is the site that we're going to link to in the show notes is InstaRemindApp.com because that tells you everything that you need to know about it, how it works, as well as ways to get in contact with the developers, and of course the link to download it. And as you said, Brian, it's $2.99 in the Mac App Store. I love it. I love it. That's great. Thanks.
Thank you.
Awesome pick.
Yeah.
Awesome
Thank
pick.
you.
Well, I think then with that said, that is going to do it for this episode of For Mac Guys Only. I hope everyone enjoyed it. Remember, I do love to get your letters, so if you have any comments about the show, a tip to share, a software or hardware problem with your Mac, or maybe there are some remote access apps that you feel you would like to share with everyone in the For Mac Guys Only audience, please be sure to leave your favorites in the comments of this week's show notes found at formaccguysonly.com, or you can drop me a line, mike@formaccguysonly.com. And of course, you can subscribe to the show's YouTube channel at youtube.com/FMEOTV. Click that little notification bell and you will find out when we're going live. You can join the chat room and you can catch all the behind the scenes fun stuff that doesn't make the final cut of the show. Hey, Brian, what's the best way for folks to get a hold of you? And where can they find you if they want to learn more?
Yeah, best place to find me if you want to learn more about projects I'm working on, presentations, things of that nature. Please reach out on my website, brian8944.com.
I love how you did that. You took everything that was related to you and the projects you're working on and podcasts you're appearing on. I think you have the various podcasts you're on as well on there, all in one place. And that's perfect. That's a great way to do it. Absolutely wonderful. And Darren, what's the best way for folks to get a hold of you?
Yes, perfect. If anyone would like to send me a message, you can send me a message on darren@formaccguysonly.com. I'd be quite interested to hear from people who have been on the other end of like a support call and a remote desktop call. So it'd be great to hear what their experiences were like, whether they're bad or good, or I can learn from that. That would be fantastic. I looked up what the iPhone app was called to do remote desktops to an iPhone, and that's called iPhone mirroring.
You'd think we would be able to remember that, Darren.
You would, yes. I need to add it to my doc now because since I forgot the name, I won't be able to invoke Siri or anything to run the app by remembering its name because clearly I can't remember the name, so I have to put it on my doc now.
Have to put it on the doc. Well, thanks so much for listening, everyone. Thanks to Darren and Brian for joining me this episode. Stay subscribed, and we'll talk to you next time. And I'm going to drop the end card up, guys, and then I'll be right with you, okay? Bye, everyone.